this All Hallows Eve, we are talking about the evil bisexual. Hi pals, it's Auntie. They/them. You see what I did there? Happy Halloween. I love Halloween, and yet I never feel like I get to celebrate or dress up like at all. So it makes me sad that every year there's always events going on, but either none that I'm particularly interested in or none that people I know are interested in either. So I have been having a lot of fun actually this year with my channel content. Surprise. And I thought I would end the month with a little kind of dress up. Artie, what the fuck are you? Bro, doesn't matter. But actually, I kind of took a little bit of inspiration from a D&D character that I made and then never used. So yeah, if anybody plays D&D but they aren't playing for 8-hour stints / it's during the daytime, maybe also virtually, that'll be great. Let me know. So what am I don't know, some kind of D&D prince. Am I magical? I don't know. Maybe. Let's just say I'm a fae prince. I am a fairy prince, and that's all anybody needs to know. Because also, look how cool this shirt is. I never get to wear it because I don't really know how to wear it. Anyway, getting to the actual point of the video now. The typical depraved bisexual is bi because, well, why not? Their willingness to sleep with everyone they can is just one facet of their axe craziness, i.e., they don't consider certain relationships taboo because they don't consider anything taboo. A slightly less pathological version of the trope depicts the depraved bisexual as simply supremely manipulative. Recognizing the effectiveness of sex as a control mechanism, they resort to it at every opportunity, reasoning that successful seductions gain new thralls, while even unsuccessful ones tend to increase others' fear of you. Cold-blooded, manipulative, murderous, and willing to do anything to achieve their goals, including using sex. Many of these characters are also ambiguous bis because it is never expressly stated they are attracted to multiple genders. The evil bisexual is portrayed as picky when it comes to having sexual relations with other characters and often uses their sexuality and sex to manipulate others. They are the other, and their bisexuality is shown as another aspect of their otherness. Bisexuality is used as a metaphor to convey their hedonism, their alienness, or a general anarchistic attitude towards the rules of polite society. That last one's my personal favourite, to be honest, because it screams autism as well. So there's a lot of depictions of bi people out there at this point. There's many. You know, and it's always debatable which ones are actually problematic and which ones are just kind of old based on stereotypes, and then which ones are a little bit more nuanced and open and interesting. I have chosen a selection of bisexual characters, whether it is canon or whether it is implied, and it also comes under the ambiguous bi trope as well, because many of them do. I have picked a selection of bisexual characters that I personally have seen and enjoy. I like these ones. To cover the characters that I will be talking about and a little bit about their specific representation in their respective media, I guess is the term to use. American Horror Story Hotel, Lady Gaga's character Elizabeth, both bisexual and polyamorous. Vampires are also a pretty common trope alongside bisexual characters. Being evil beings and seductors fits pretty easily into the evil bisexual trope. She is mainly part of a male-female couple for a lot of the narrative who seduce other people, male-female couples, and then literally murdering them and drinking their blood and doing other things. Other things. In 1925, while trying to become a famous actress, Elizabeth met Hollywood actor Rudolph Valentino and his wife, Natasha Rambova, with whom she began a secret polyamorous relationship. Engaged in the romance of a lifetime, Elizabeth fell deeply in love with them and was able to explore her bisexuality at the time in which it was considered unacceptable. In 1977, Elizabeth met Ramona Royale at the hotel and began a sexual relationship with her, promising that they would be together forever. However, as years progressed, they drifted apart. Rocky Horror Picture Show Dr. Frankenfurter. I also just want to remark on the fact that Dr. Frankenfurter is obviously an interpretation of Dr. Frankenstein, and I think it's funny that they made the scientist the king of sexual experimentation. And if you go by the original or the more recent remake of the film, he's either a cross-dresser or actually trans. He also comes under the sissy villain, which comes up a few times actually among these characters. As the name would suggest, it is a man whose heart is as twisted as his wrist is limp. Due to social stigmas against male femininity and unmanliness, there is a strong tendency in fiction to assign effeminate traits to villains, flamboyant mannerisms, delicate voices, light builds, prissiness, femininely pretty looks, grandiloquent speeches, grandiloquent, I think that's how you say that, giggling, love for poetry and opera, impeccable fashion sense, not always in men's clothing, fondness for Persian cats. That seems really specific, etc. Evil, it seems, is swishier than a silk skirt. In Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, we have Tabitha and Ambrose, again, polyamorous. I would also throw in that Ambrose has a little bit of the sissy villain trope as well. Basically, these two started dating at some point. But before that, Ambrose had definitely dated numerous men. So did Tabitha. But then also Tabitha's coven seems to be polyamorous and or at least having sex parties, something like that. Again, been a while. That show was only decent for the aesthetics more than anything else. So Elite, which is a Spanish show. Polo, I loved him. I would maybe even say he's maybe a little bit of the sissy villain in a way, but he is pretty much the main villain of season 1, as he ended up being the murderer and then eventually the murdered, with a woman initially, and he's very possessive of her, but then is just kind of down for like a weird little throuple with one of the poor scholarship kids at school. So again, threesomes. Old Gossip Girl. Chuck mainly in the books, but there is hinting in the TV show. But honestly, it is so short and such a small moment. I don't blame anyone if they forgot, because I forgot. I would absolutely say he is under the sissy villain, especially his representation in the books. But Chuck was explicitly queer in the books and was written in a more femme, camp, flamboyant way than how he was portrayed in the TV show. But they definitely had a lot of flamboyant camp style for him in the TV show. However, they did keep in a lot of the same terribleness of his character. In the new Gossip Girl, we have Thomas. They kind of took Book Chuck. Was Book Chuck Chuck or Book Chuck? Woodchuck Book. I'm mentally ill, guys. In case you didn't know, I'm bisexual and mentally ill. So they kind of took Book Chuck and revived him on screen as Thomas from the reboot of the Gossip Girl TV show. that basically should just never have happened. They just shouldn't have bothered. They should have just left it dead. Should have just left it where it was. It was a very terrible idea. So he very much comes under the sissy villain. He is a much more flamboyant and effeminate characterization of Chuck slash a bisexual. I don't know. Bi man. I don't know.
I forgot to mention as well, in the new Gossip Girl, there is also a polyamorous threesome. So we're really hitting all the marks, honestly.
In You, I'm gonna use Peach. I'm gonna use Peach. Peach appears to be bi, as she's obsessively attracted to Beck, seeking to manipulate her. She also willingly has sex later with Raj, though it's clear that she was hoping to have sex with Beck, or at least a three-way. Peach is in the closet about it because her family wouldn't be accepting, and this possibility drives part of her negative behaviours in general. Pretty Little Liars, Allison. Allison did so many crazy things before the show begins to piss people off. She definitely seems to be somebody who enjoys just doing shit for her own entertainment, even if it really fucks everybody else up. She was the mean girl, the manipulator, and the seductress. I feel like a lot of the time, the bisexual characters come in two forms, and it very much depends on the gender or sex of the character. The bi men come as the sissy villain most of the time, and then the bi women come as the seductress, the manipulator a lot of the time. However, I will say I feel like Rowan does not fit the pretty typical expectation. So I wouldn't class him as a sissy villain. In Heartbreak High, Rowan is super mentally ill. He's real mentally, he got mental illness. He's obsessed with a woman, of course, but gets down with dudes, but especially to get back at the girl he was obsessed with and stalking. Killing Eve, Villanelle. I would also like to point out that the combination of all of these kinds of tropes, they also made her Russian, which I don't think helps avoid the stereotype accusations of, let's make a stereotypical villain. What does that look like? A woman who fucks women and men, also Russian, and a spy. I mean, we love her, but really? In Riverdale, Betty, I stopped watching. I tried so hard. I don't even remember what season it was. Maybe 6. I don't even know. I stopped watching so long ago, so long before the show ended. It just got so ridiculous and nonsensical. I simply could not do it to myself anymore. I just couldn't do it to myself anymore. But I've heard a few things. I've read a few things online about Betty and Veronica. The show ending on some kind of weird quadruplet note, but maybe that was just made up to bring the bisexuals back. Somebody said that the show ended with, God, what are all their names? Jughead, Archie, Betty and Veronica as all in a relationship together. I mean, I was pissed because I would have loved to see that. Would have loved to see how that worked out, how that happened. Alas, I don't know if that's real, if it happened, and I'm not putting myself through anymore to get to it, But also, very early in season 1, we had Evil Betty. Betty in general, for one, is played by a bisexual actress, Slay. Lily Reinhart, And I feel like Betty has shown bisexual leanings here and there. We know her to have an evil streak, the evil gene, thanks to her father, the murderer, the big serial killer murderer man, which led to her being this weird, kinky murderess in like what season one? The hot tub scene, the wig, cam. Was she a cam girl? Am I making that up? Anyway, so that's why she was included. Desperate Housewives, Andrew Vanderkamp. I have not watched this show in so long. I feel like me and my mum watched all of the seasons of the show together. So I think sometime after I finished university, so that could have been 7 years ago. But I do remember this. He came out as gay to his parents, but then tells a priest he loves vanilla, but sometimes he's in the mood for chocolate. And no, that was not a metaphor for what it sounds like. That was a metaphor for men and women. So he seems to have a preference for men, but also likes a little bit of women here and there. Apparently, he was also a sociopath who made his mother's life a living hell until his sociopath tendencies dissipated in season 3, and so did any trace of his bisexuality. So he just became gay from then on. Skins, as I've already done like a whole video on like the queerness of Skins Generation 1, which does also talk about Cassie post Sid breakup, so you can go and watch that video. But again, neither of them seemed particularly bisexual until they suddenly started doing bisexual things. So neither of them identify that way. But still a bit of a laugh, isn't it? Jennifer's body, Jennifer, obviously she was turned into a siren slash succubus by a boy band who sacrificed her for fame, and that's a punishment because she's a slut and wasn't a virgin. So then she, seduces men to kill them now, or boys. Needy says in the film, "I thought you only murdered boys." And Jennifer says, "I go both ways." The slutty bisexual character is portrayed as overly promiscuous or hypersexual. These characters tend to be female and are marketed to the male audience as an object of sexuality. Characters in this trope are commonly portrayed as being a part of a threesome, although I feel like Jennifer's body is a subversive version of this trope, making more of a comment on slut shaming, seeing as she was made into an evil bisexual because she wasn't a virgin and would have been considered a slut. But also, the gays love her, the girls love her, the theys also. I'm the they. I love her, and I support women's wrongs, particularly when they are Jennifer. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, obviously Roxy Richter, oh my god, is just one of Ramona Flowers' 7 evil exes, with the very iconic line, "I'm bi-furious." In X-Men, Mystique is another one. Whilst not made super mainstream, in my opinion, we do know that Mystique is a shapeshifter, which makes everything gay anyway. Personal opinion as a non-binary person. But she is canonically bisexual and was in love with Destiny, or is in love. This is the thing. I don't understand how comic books work. That sounds so fucking stupid. I don't really understand how. Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really get how they work because it's always the same characters, but written by and drawn by a bunch of different people. And I don't know where it starts. So I don't want to just jump in, but I think you kind of just have to, and I don't like that. So if anybody can give me advice on how to read comic books, please and thank you. But yeah, so either way, at some point she was in love with Destiny. I believe they got married and had a child as well. Was it Nighthawk? I did read this, but Anyway, the Magneto mutants are always shadowed or coloured or considered as evil or bad in the mainstream due to the original films, but if it's been a while since you've last watched them, I think you should go watch them again now and let me know who is fighting for what exactly, and why do we think Magneto and his mates are bad? Because I've questions. I've got some questions on that. I've got some questions. Why are they considered bad? Is it because then they're not passive? Interesting. Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, they are literally villains. they are literally considered comic book villains, but they are canonically bi and canonically together, at least in some media iterations of their stories. I did read those comics. I did read those comics. And then I also included Deadpool, even though I don't know if I would necessarily consider him evil. I mean, it's kind of like Villanelle, where they are basically being paid to kill people. He's a mercenary. He's being paid to kill people. I think it's pretty rare for that to not be considered bad or evil. I kind of talked a little bit about that in my Thunderbolts video, because that's what Yelena is. She's a mercenary. I think a lot of them were, actually, by the time that film narrative was happening. And that whole film was all about, hey, yeah, these people are supposedly bad and evil, but have you considered capitalism, trauma, racism and xenophobia, and misogyny, maybe? Let's just throw misogyny out there, it's probably some misogyny involved. But like, one of my main reasons why I was ever interested in Deadpool is because he is canonically pansexual. I'm pretty sure they actually also chose the term pansexual and not just bi as well. So like they've thought about this. Also, I really like the idea of Spidey Pool, but nothing happens ever. But he does flirt with Peter Parker like constantly in the few of those comics I did read. And then my very short list of will be mentioned, but I don't consider them evil. And I mean, honestly, really, do I consider any of these characters evil? Probably not really. I support gay rights and wrongs. Be gay, do crime. Can you blame me? But honourable considerations. Jane the Virgin, Petra. By the time Petra realises she is bi, she is no longer the villain of the story, and she is on far better terms with the main character, Jane. Pretty Little Liars, Mia.
Her name is Maya. For God's sake.
Because this is Emily's first girlfriend, who is canonically bi, one of the few. She's a little bit free, a little bit weird, likes to smoke a little bit of weed, So is seen as bad and evil by Emily's religious and conservative parents. Also, I think that's true in the book too. I did read those a while back too. Sex education, Adam. Whilst not technically evil, I feel like he's probably one of the worst ones. He's definitely one of the worst ones we will talk about. We do see him reform himself as the show goes on, but he is a really fucking shitty person in season 1 to everyone he's in contact with, but especially his love interest, Eric. Teen Wolf Jackson, he is literally basically straight until they bring him back for the last episode, where he's like making out with one of the twins. He's like, maybe bi now. Now he's reformed himself and is helping the main characters, the main group, so he's reformed, yay! So many of these depictions associate bisexuality and polyamory together, which isn't uncommonly seen. But another interesting trend that I have noticed among the representation among this group of characters that I am focusing on today. One of these other trends is almost the idea of spreading bisexuality and polyamory like a virus, and associations with cults or cult like groups and behaviors. In American Horror Story, for example, season Hotel is kind of a combination of the two, where anyone who ends up involved with Elizabeth ends up being bi slash polyamorous. They might have already been bi or polyamorous, but it just seems to be Elizabeth is opening their eyes to a whole new world. Nobody's buying that, but I think this goes hand in hand with the vampire slash blood virus theme as well, which feels like a very thinly veiled HIV metaphor too, but also the inherent cultishness of a group of weirdos living together in a hotel rather than a commune. It's basically a metropolitan cult, I guess, and also following some kind of pseudo leader. It's also similar in Rocky Horror, where everyone who comes into contact with Dr. Frankenfurter becomes somewhat sexually flexible. And with the inspirations taken from Frankenstein, it's interesting that the creator, i.e., Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenfurter, is the one to be and cause the bisexual polyamorous puddle that is Rocky Horror Picture Show. In his huge castle, as characters slowly seem to lose the plot mentally, as their costumes and musical numbers become more and more manic. Both examples also show cross-dressing or trans characters, which I think is also another relative commonality among these plots. A lot of the times, the trans or cross-dressing characters are not bi. Sometimes they are, like Dr. Frankenfurter. With the chilling adventures of Sabrina, Gossip Girl, I think old and new Gossip Girl, You and Elite, the cult-like vibe is still there, but with more of a heavy emphasis on the rich and secret societies. They can get away with it because they come from the richest of the rich, and money covers all tracks. We can also see broadly bisexuality associated with mental illness in more modern contemporary depictions like Tony in Skins, Andrew in Desperate Housewives, Betty in Riverdale, Villanelle in Killing Eve, also Rowan in Heartbreak High, and also Alison in Pretty Little Liars. And then also going back to Elite, Polo in Elite was also definitely not mentally well. Whilst they have other overlapping traits with other themes at times, it seems the main motivator for these characters is usually boredom and an intrinsic history of mental illness or mentally ill behaviours.
Same. At me. I was about to say, did I write this? I did.
These characters have all, either at one point or continue to be throughout their narrative, cruel to others out of boredom. Where many people see them as likeable and well-adjusted, there were a handful of characters close enough to the bisexual character or on the receiving end of these cruelties. Only few people saw the real them, and even then, real is subjective, as most of these characters become reformed in their behaviours of cruelty by the end of their narratives, or had pledged to be or become reformed before an untimely end. Other characters similar are Petra in Jane the Virgin. She redeems herself before the show ends. Jackson from Teen Wolf is an absolute prick. Like, the whole time he was actually included in the narrative before he leaves the narrative sucks, but his character isn't outed as some kind of queer until right at the end, where he returns as a reformed version of himself. And then also Mia,
her name is Maya,
from Pretty Little Liars, being seen as a terrible influence on Emily for being queer and for smoking a little bit of weed here and there, but dies before she can really be redeemed in Emily's family's eyes. Or as well, Adam from Sex Education, who is so cruel, but sort of redeems himself by becoming self-aware, but his bisexuality kind of fades into the background. These characters are further examples of this, but I didn't really officially include them under the evil bisexual, as I wouldn't consider these characters as evil. And it's mostly down to how little they were in the plot, how little their sexuality was involved in the plot, or if the character managed to genuinely redeem themselves before the show ends. Then we get into the generally fantastical evil bisexuals, and these are again mostly by mainstream standards, and others already mentioned do kind of overlap in this section as well. Already mentioned, but also overlapping here are Rocky Horror Picture Show, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and American Horror Story Hotel. Other examples that don't really fit other categories are Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, Deadpool, Mystique, Roxy Richter from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and Jennifer from Jennifer's Body. Hired Assassins, which Villanelle does also fit into this too. Literally evil villains in superhero shows, films, and comics like Deadpool, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn. There's also a little bit of a mental illness one there too. Mystique, but also Roxy Richter as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a very superhero-esque film with inspirations drawn from video games and animation. And I mean, it was originally a comic, so that would make sense. It's a very fantastical version of a contemporary plot. All of them are considered bad or evil when viewed from an outside point of view, but once the narratives have been turned and we were allowed to follow these characters from their own position in life, in the world, they become complex characters. Roxy and Jennifer haven't actually been able to get the opportunity to be seen, well, as far as I know. Again, I've not actually read the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World comics, so maybe I'm wrong. Let me know. Tell me if I'm wrong. Roxy and Jennifer didn't get that opportunity as everything was from an outside perspective. At least Jennifer did have a full story arc and movie-length plot based around her that we can dissect, whereas Roxy was deemed side plot, like many bisexual characters often are. With no stakes and no investment in the side characters, it's easy to go, oh, they're bi, by the way. Whether the media shows it or truly incorporates it is another thing entirely, but it's usually a short one-off side plot that doesn't return again. Whilst this example isn't evil, it is an example of that happening. If you look at Once Upon a Time, for example, pretty much all of the bisexual characters disappear from relevance after coming out, and almost every queer character ever in Casualty moves on pretty quickly after their queer plot has been resolved in some way. Yeah, to top it all off, almost every example I've given are also slutty. I feel neither here nor there about that. Slay. There are a few exceptions, like Deadpool is devoted to his wife in the films, and Roxy is barely enough of a character in the film to even know if she is slutty or not. But many of these characters use their sexuality as a manipulation tactic, or sometimes even a mode of punishment, such as in Jennifer's Body, or Evil Betty in Riverdale, Rowan in Heartbreak High, and even Cassie in Skins, which was a sort of rebellious time post Sid breakup and basically was a punishment to him, but also was very much a side plot. Does her girlfriend even get a name? I don't think she does. Even Andrew's bisexuality in Desperate Housewives could be considered a punishment, but specifically to his uptight, controlling, but also mentally ill mother. So anyway, that was my video this week. I had a little bit of an essay for you, whilst also then covering a little bit of the context of these characters. It's been a while since I've written an essay, not gonna lie, like a proper essay. So I definitely feel like I did not write the essay well for a written essay, but you're gonna watch it and listen to it instead, so it's probably fine. But yeah, again, I enjoyed making this video, even though, oh my God. Right, look, listen. My ADHD is right fucking me off. I was so resistant to planning and prepping this video, and I don't know why. I just didn't fucking want to do it. But when I actually got to start doing it, made myself start writing the details about these characters and writing my little analysis, I was having a fucking ball. I was enjoying myself, having a great fucking time. And then, yeah, here we are. It's done. But why the fuck did it take me like so many fucking weeks? I could have done this ages ago. I could have filmed it ages ago. Although, to be fair, I might not have had a funny little outfit for you if I'd filmed this a while ago. I might not have considered doing that. So it is what it is. Yes, I did enjoy making this video. I enjoyed discussing a trope again and talking more broadly and not necessarily just within a show or just within a game franchise like my Life is Strange, Haunting the Narrative video. Although I really did love that video and I would like to carry on talking about Life is Strange. So let me know, please, what you would like to know or see my thoughts on. Because I don't know. I think really, evil bisexuals are a fun trope, actually. My opinion, fucking love some evil bisexuals. Again, be gay, do crime. I'll still vote for you. I don't know. Yeah, obviously, I've probably missed loads of evil bisexuals. Like, it's obvious. I have not watched every piece of media that involves bisexuals at all, let alone specifically the evil bisexuals. So, let me know who your favorite evil bisexuals are. If it's someone I've talked about in this video, that is completely fine. Tell me. Then we can both talk about that. There are probably some that I've forgotten about as well. I did not remember Andrew, for example, from Desperate Housewives until it kind of came up when I was doing the research. I was like, oh yeah, that did happen. So yeah, let me know who your favorite evil bisexuals are, what they were in, and why you love them, because then you are giving me more things that I can go and watch and enjoy. But yes, I think that is it for me this week. Happy Halloween. And I will see you next week without the fun and whimsy of Halloween. Boo! Tomato, tomato! Boo! Boo! Anyway, bye.